All right, hey there, fellow coder. Welcome to this next installment in our series where we're building a real-world web app from scratch, leveraging Spring Boot on the back end, React on the front end, and a MySQL database to tie it all together. So in this one, we're going to be diving a little bit further into our last video, which is this is going to be a part 2 for adding a commenting functionality into our application. We are in the realm of CRUD, ladies and gentlemen, creating, reading, updating, and deleting data to and from a database via a front end being a view, being a web page. So this is the fundamental part of developing in the web from front to back end. This is what makes the world go around. So if you want to see more about what makes the world go around in the world of coding, stick around. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the good stuff. So I'll give you the quick background. In the past video, the last one, we added the comments table into our database. So now we have a place to store all of our comments. And we've added a very simple UI for people to leave a comment. So it's just a text box with a button where you can type in text and click on a button, and that starts the process of sending a post request to the back end. On that topic of a post request, like I said, this is the C part of the CRUD operation. This is the create part. We need to create a create endpoint. What that means is we need to allow for this data to be inserted. Create is another way to say insert the information into a database. And remember that when we're creating our endpoints, our RESTful endpoints on the back end, there's a common convention that we follow when we're creating, reading, updating, and deleting. Creating means we are posting to the name of the endpoint is the name of the domain object pluralized, right? So our domain object is a comment, but you should pluralize it. That's the way you do it typically as a coding convention. So the endpoint we're going to be posting to here is /comments. More specifically, it's going to be /API/comments, but that's, in general, I'm just saying it's /comments/ the name of the domain object pluralized. So when you're creating, you post to that endpoint. If you want to read all the comments, you just say get from that same endpoint. That gets you all the comments. If you want to just get one comment, you'll say get /comment/ and then you pass in the individual ID of the comment or the domain, whatever object it is. You can take the word comment out and put in any word here, like users or assignments or addresses or any objects that you can think of, anything where you're storing it in the database. Just plug in the name of the domain object, the name of the table, essentially. Boom, right there, sort of. So yeah, if you want to read one comment, you just say /comment/ and the comment ID. If you want to update an existing comment, it's /comment/ ID as a put. If you want to delete a comment, it's delete as comment/comment ID. So you get the idea. That's the structure that we follow, and that is the structure that we will obviously be creating in our back end. So having said that, let's unveil the magic and start to make it happen on the back end. So the first thing that we need to do here is we have a post request coming from the front end. So the front end, right here, post, right? We click on this button, on click, submits a comment. So let's look at the submit comment. What does it do? It sends a post to API/comments. So hey, look, I'm not lying. That's the endpoint that I was talking about that in the presentation that I just had up. If you want me to bring it back up, oh, I can't. That's the wrong thing. Here we go. Post, when you want to create something, post to /comments, which is exactly what we're about to do. We're going to create a post to sort of comments to API/comments. But before we can do that, because we are creating a post to the /comments endpoint, that implies that there should be a comments controller. Controllers are what listens to these endpoints. It's what listens for these posts and puts and reads and deletes and all this stuff. So let's create a new controller because we don't have one yet. We have an assignment controller which listens on, shockingly, API/assignments. We have an auth controller that hits a different endpoint, but for these domain objects, let's create another class called comment controller. This one is singular. Don't forget to annotate with @controller, REST controller, These are REST endpoints. These endpoints return data, not views. Okay. If these endpoints are returning views, like HTML views, it would just be a regular old controller. A REST controller implies that you're returning just data, not a view. Cool. So then, we also need the request mapping. This is where we say all endpoints in this entire comments controller will be prefixed with API/comments. Okay, so that just means regardless of if it's a put, post, read, a delete, patch, whatever, they're all going to be prefixed with API/comments, which means if you send a post or any request to this endpoint of API/comments, you're probably going to be sent into this controller. Now remember, I said post. We want to post to API/comments. How do you do that? You just pass in an empty string, and that will post to API/comments, which means this is the endpoint for creating comments, right? This is to create a comment, right? And create a comment returns something. It does not have a void. It actually returns something. What does it return? Well, since it's a REST controller, typically we return a response entity, okay? And we'll probably return the comment that we created, most likely, okay? And is that right? Comment, did I create? Yeah, create it over here. How come I can't import that? Did I not save somewhere? Anyway, I'll fix that in a moment. Are we passing anything in here? Yes, we're passing in the actual comment itself, which will be part of, if it's a post, it's in the request body, right? So the request body has the data. Cool. Control-Shift-O to try to import all this stuff. So comment comes from domain comment. Double click, and it figured everything else out. Sweet, excellent. So that's our endpoint. Now we need to have it do something. Remember, controllers do not talk directly to databases, to repositories. Controllers talk to services. Okay, and that's it. So if you have a controller, you should only be the controller should only depend on services. It should never depend on repositories. That's another coding convention. So we should have a comment service in here. Comment service. Make it private. Sorry, not public. Private. Okay, and we should auto wire it in so that Spring handles the injection of it. Now comment service doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to hover over it and I'm going to say create. Oh my. Create this class. That was a lot of scrolling. That's the most scrolling I've had to do for any of those, auto completion, whatever. And we'll put it into the service package instead of web service. So then boom, comment service gets put into the service package. And because it's a service, we should also not forget to annotate with service. I always forget to do that. And then this service will have something, some methods in it. But for now, boom, we have a comment service, and this comment service will do something. And then eventually we're going to be returning something. We're going to return a response entity, and we're going to say OK. And the body will be a comment, but for now we'll just say null. So that's our endpoint, right? That's sort of the start of what we have to work with. And for now we can have it return something like a new comment, right? And good enough. So that's our endpoint. Let's reboot our server. We can test it on the front end just to see that it comes back with an empty comment. Okay, so on the front end, when I let me refresh this page, make sure it comes up properly. When I can type anything in here. Let me hit F12 to go to my console. When I click post, I should get back a response if all goes well. Let's see. So I got a 400. So 400 means, and I know why now. 400 means bad request, which it says here. But what does bad request mean? It means that the data that we sent in the network call, so if we go to the comments post request that we just sent, and we go to the payload, which it means the request body, this is the request body, assignment, text, and user. Okay, assignment, text, user. That's the request body that we just sent. On the server side, it is expecting this request body. This request body is a comment in this structure. It's expecting an ID, an assignment, a created by, a created date, a text, and that's what it's expecting, right? So it's expecting all this stuff, and we sent it completely not what it's expecting. So that's why it said 400 bad requests. I don't understand what you're sending to me. Go home. You're drunk. fix stuff. So we need to make sure that we're sending the right thing to the endpoint. So, or we can modify the endpoint to, there's two ways to fix it. Change the stuff that you're sending to match what you're expecting, or change what you're expecting to match what you're sending, right? You can change either one. In this case, it'll be easier to change what we're expecting because we're not, to pre-populate everything properly into a full comment object, it might be a bit too difficult at this moment because of the data itself. It has one and two relationships. So these two relationships are tricky to populate properly. It's expecting an entire assignment object, and we're passing it just an assignment ID. Okay, so that's sort of out of whack what we're passing it. And by the way, we're sending it as a string. I would prefer to send that as not a string, but a number. Text assignment ID. Oh, I see. It's coming in as that. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter yet. So what we need to do here is we need to match what we're sending. We're gonna say what we're sending is what we want to keep. How we're receiving it over here in the comment controller here. This is what we're gonna change. How do you change it? Excuse me. You create a DTO, a data transfer object. So we're gonna change the type, and we're gonna create a class called comment DTO. We'll throw it in with our other DTOs, which I think is in DTO. Boom. Now this comment DTO will match what we're sending: assignment, text, and user, right? So private, well, it's a string right now, but I would like it to be a long assignment ID, and we're sending text. My face might be in the way of this, but anyway, maybe I can lean, assignment, text, and user is what we want in the bottom corner there. Assignment, text, and user. So private string text and private, it's actually a string JWT really, but we'll call it user, even though it's not a user, it's a JSON web token. And we'll format this code, Control-Shift-F to format, which just makes it prettier. And we'll call this the comment DTO. Boom. So now, and let me reboot my server. Now it should actually work, sort of. So we're going to pass that data in. Let me actually do a, let me add, in my comment DTO, I'm going to add Alt-Shift-S to add a toString, and I'm going to generate a toString method. There you go. So I just generated a toString method, and now I'm going to also do a system out on that guy. I'm going to system out comment DTO. So this will allow me to output what we're receiving in the console here, just because it's nicer to see that information. Reboot, refresh, blah, 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 post comment, boom. So see, look, assignment ID, null, text, whatever, user, whatever. So I was not expecting the assignment ID to be null. Oh, right, null, right. So I was expecting a long, and it sent a string, and it was not able to parse that. So remember when I said, I would prefer that we're sending a number, not a string. Now we need to fix that. So let's see. So it's a string because of the way we're splitting it here. Although we actually don't need to split it. There's a way to read this from the navigation. If I did this the right way, if I refactored this to be the right way, the React router v6 read dynamic URL. There's something with dynamic URL, or I forget. Dynamic route. Yes, this. Use params. There we go. Boom. This guy. So instead of saying, we'll say assignment ID like this, we'll comment this out. Use params, we will import from React Router DOM, save this. Okay, nothing seems to have broken. Let me clear my... Sorry, I should probably make this bigger for you guys to see. I always forget that my face is in the corner. So let's type in it. Actually, you don't need to type in anything. You just say post. Payload. Now it says text and user, so it doesn't even have the assignment ID. That must have been null then. Interesting. So let's do a log here and say assignment ID undefined. Interesting. So I missed. There's more. So route path blah. So how do I have my router path here? Dashboard. Yeah, route path assignments ID. Oh, probably because I called it ID, so maybe I need to call this assignment ID. That could be why it's not mapping properly. There you go. Now it's mapped properly. Okay. So yeah, you need to make sure that this matches what you're using in the use params. So good to know. Thankfully, I figured that out pretty quickly. Let me go to the network tab and clear the network and say post. So I can see, are we sending a number now in the payload? Oops, so it's still not there. Does that make sense? Why would that not be there? So we did get a response back, which is, I think maybe, yeah, the response back is nice. This is an actual comment object. But the ID is not being sent correctly. Why is assignment ID still non-existent? If we have an assignment ID, and if we have a comment here. Oh, maybe I need to type stuff and then say post. No. Update. Because the assignment ID should be here, right? I mean... Wait, this says assignment. Am I expecting assignment or assignment ID? Comment, where's my comment DTO? Comment DTO. Assignment ID. Okay. So, mismatch of names there. So, this should just be assignment ID, which the short form for this is just to do this. Okay, they both mean the same thing. It's just less text if you want to be lazy about it. So you can say post again. Let me go to network, comments, payload. Yeah, so assignment ID is in there now, but it's still a string. So that's annoying, but yeah, so it's params as a string is the type that it's using. So we're going to have to convert that string. Okay. How are we going to do that? I guess what we can do is say assignment. Can we put logic in here? Can we say assignment ID not equal to null, question mark? Then return parse int assignment ID, otherwise return null, or comma. Can you put logic in there like that? Oh my gosh, I think you can. That's awesome. Basically what we want to avoid is parsing something that's null. If it's null, we don't want to try to parse it, and I don't want to deal with that problem. So that's the solution I was going for there. So if I say post, show me the payload, there we go. Now it's a number, assignment ID. See, there's no quotes around that anymore. It's just the naked number 12. So that's perfect. So now when we go into the back end, now in the back end in the comments or in the console, it says assignment ID 12. So now we have the proper data. All that work just to get the data on the back end But we have it now, so we're able to grab that comment DTO. So now, as promised, with this comment DTO, I would like to save this to the database. Thankfully, this part of it is not too big a deal. So hopefully, famous last words. Okay, comment service. The service is where we do all the work. I'm going to create a save method in the comment service that takes the comment DTO, and it will translate that into a comment object. Okay, so I pass in a comment DTO, I get back out a comment, and then I can take that comment that came back out and I can put that on the response entity. Okay, now this comment service save method doesn't exist, so I'm going to hover over it and I'm going to say create the method save. So this will just create the stub for me. I do this just because I'm lazy and I don't want to type this in myself. So I type it out and I try to invoke it or call that method as if it already exists, and then I can hover over it and just create it. So how does this work? Well, this should work by having, by bringing in the comment repository. Okay, comment repo. Now again, the comment repository doesn't exist. But what did we learn from what I just did? I type things out as if they existed so I can hover over them and say create interface. So I'll create an interface called comment repository. I will put this into the repository package, and then I will extend JPA repo. Okay, so JPA repository, this allows us to leverage, this is Spring Data JPA is what I'm doing right now. It's a great way to quickly get access to all the CRUD SQL functionality just by typing in one line of code. But you do need to tell it two things. You need to tell it what is the backing object that we are using here, what is the entity object, which in this case in our app it's called comment, is the entity. Okay, we can import it from our domain package. And then what is the type of the ID for comments? Okay, in this case it's a long. And that's it. Just with that, boom, we now have access to the CRUD stuff. So the comment repo that we auto-wired in will now be populated with some endpoint or some methods or functions like this. Watch, comment repo dot. Look at all the beautiful stuff we can do. So one thing that we want to do is save. So we want to save an entity, but we can't save an entity yet because we don't have an entity. Comment DTO is not an entity, it's a DTO. So we need to just quickly convert the DTO to an actual entity. So let's create a new comment. Okay, we'll call this comment, and we can put that into the save. So this would just save a blank comment, but that's not good enough. We actually want to return this, by the way, because .save will return a comment object when we save it, which is exactly what the save method should return. But this isn't going to work. This is just a blank comment, so we need to populate the comment with some of the data from comment DTO. So we need to set created by, we need to set created date, text, and assignment. So the text is the easiest one to set because we do comment DTO.get text. Boom, we're done. We also need to get access to the user, and that is done by I forgot to add the authentication principal. So we add authentication principal here, user, that allows us to get the user object. We actually want to pass that along to the comment service save method. So we pass in the user here, user, and then we can say import that comment.set user, created by, to be that user. What else? We need the assignment. So we're going to need an assignment repository here. Assignment repository, assignment repo. The reason why is I want to say comment.set assignment, and this set assignment on the comment needs a full assignment. But what do we have on the DTO? Comment DTO.get, we have only an ID. So we need to translate or transform an ID to an actual full object, right? So how do we do that? Well, we do it via the assignment repo. Get by ID, comment DTO.get assignment ID. You see what I did there? So we get the assignment, the full assignment from the database. Assignment. And then we can set that in here. So we're setting the assignment, the text, the created by, and we also need to set the created date, which is a local date time, which I think, can I say local date time dot now? Yeah. That's it. It's just created now. right? So I think that's everything. Are there any other setter methods here that we need to be interested in? So comment.set assignment, yep, we did that. Created by, yep, we did that. Created date, yep, we did that. Set ID, well, we don't do that ourselves. We let the MySQL database set the ID for us. Set text, yep, we did that. So that's it. This is the code needed to create a comment and save it to the database based on comment DTO data that we got from the front end. Reboot the server. And, sorry, I go fast with this stuff because, well, one, you as a coder, you do this kind of stuff all the time. Like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years. This is, well, I still make mistakes on this stuff every once in a while, but it's pretty run-of-the-mill stuff for me because I've done it 100 million times at this point. So, cool. We have the data or the code in place to save. Now let's test it and see if it actually can save into the database. This is a test message. Let's flip back to the console, clear everything, and when I post, hopefully we get an error. So 500 error. See, I said every once in a while I make a mistake. It happens. No serializer for what? Uh-oh. This looks like a assignment. So it's having trouble with. So it's having trouble with what seems to be. To avoid this exception, disable serialization feature, fail on empty beans. Through reference chain, domain comment assignment to domain assignment. So comment assignment. So it didn't like that. Lazy initializer, so there's some lazy going on there. No serializer found. So Jackson, so this looks like, is this a problem of saving? No, actually, I was gonna say this doesn't look like a save problem. This looks like a view problem, because whenever it's talking about Jackson, faster XML Jackson, that is a translation thing where it takes a Java object and turns it into JSON. Right? JavaScript object notation. So as you can see, we've successfully inserted it into the database. So if we go over here, white screen, I'm sorry. If we go and select star from comments, there should be a comment. Yeah, this is a test message, assignment ID 12, user ID 1, created date, beautiful. So as you can see, we're beautiful on the back end portion of this. We just have a display issue on the front end, which it's trying to parse the comment that we're returning, right? So if you go to the comment controller, we're returning a response entity with a comment in the response body, and it cannot serialize something. So I think it's trying to, do we care? So basically what I think it's having a problem with is the assignment portion of it, which, do we need to pass that data back to the front end? I don't necessarily think so. So I'm going to kind of JSON ignore this for now. Okay, so we just say ignore the assignment portion of this object in passing it back. That's one way to do this. Really, we should be passing back a DTO again. But anyway, we'll just pass back the full comment object and see. So this is another test message. Post. Boom. So we did get a response this time. ID2, created date, text. This is another test message. So beautiful. We have now successfully inserted it into the front end, into the database, and then sent the response back with the actual object that was persisted to the database back to the front end that we can now do something with. So over here is the front end, and that's where we just saw the data get logged out to the console. It got logged right here. Okay. So really, this is just a comment object, right? To be more specific, right? We posted to comments, and we sent the comment object with the data here that was populated, and then we received a response with the object that was saved to the database. So now we have successfully fulfilled the C in our CRUD operations that we need to partake in, right? So creation is done. Now let's move on to, I guess, reading is next. We'll need to be able to read all of the messages that belong to a particular assignment so we can show them on the front end. So we can do that in the next video. By the way, I haven't done a shout out to my bootcamp in a little while. If you like this stuff, and if you want to learn this stuff and get good at this stuff and actually get a job as a coder, check out coderscampus.com/ not bot. Do I even have coderscampus.com/bot? No, coderscampus.com/bootcamp. And you can check out our full stack Java bootcamp, right? So this is exactly what I teach you guys in this bootcamp. So much so that my students, get jobs when they graduate. Imagine that. We have a great placement rate at the moment. It is higher than 90%. As of the recording of this video, it's still like 96%, but who knows? That can always fluctuate. But yeah, it's free to apply. If you have about 20 hours a week free in your schedule and your goal is to get a job, you can do this. You can learn this stuff while working a full-time job. But it's a lot of work, right? If you're working a full-time job and you do a boot camp like this, a part-time, it does suck up the majority of your time, so you kind of won't have much of a social life for about 6 months, but it is a 6-month program, so you'll be able to come out the other end of it ready to be a coder who can get a job in the real world. Okay, and we don't just go out and hire our own students. That's something that you see online to like buff up our numbers. Sure, if I hire one of my students, it's because they're probably one of the best students and they're amazing, and I'm like, I don't want any other employer to have this student. But that doesn't scale for us in my current corporation. I can't hire all my students, so I have to find them jobs. That's the way it goes. So yeah, if your goal is to get a job, and if you love this stuff and love learning from me, this might be a really good fit. So go to coderscampus.com/bootcamp. Apply now. Like I said, if you have about 20 hours free a week, you are welcome to apply. It is absolutely free. And we do sort of service, North America and some European countries at the moment, and potentially Australia as well, but that's if the time zones work out for you. But if you're in sort of other sort of, still developing countries, this costs money. This is not a free program. So most of the time, from what we've seen, it's not accessible to those who are from sort of third world countries. I can't control the global economy, but if you are in a first world country that, has a little bit of disposable income available to you to invest in yourself and to get a good job, check it out, right? We have some financing options as well, but check it out. You might be a good fit for the bootcamp. So go ahead, apply now. Thank you so much for doing that. And in lieu of that, if you can't do a boot camp, if you can't afford it, or for whatever reason you don't want to, you can always go above my face and click on the circle icon above to subscribe to the channel to keep getting this free content. Sound like a plan? Cool. Don't forget to smash the like button as well for me, YouTube algorithm, etc., etc. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourself. Happy learning, and bye for now.